periods, doing that according to what the culture is saying is a woman's power or what it should be or should not be. And time again, your women break through something that either then destroys them or liberates them or whatever. And I don't know of anyone that's quite doing that. So I don't mean to embarrass you, but I wanted to ask you, is that feminism to you? What is that in you that understands, in my opinion, so brilliantly the plight of woman and woman-empowered woman? That was a long-ass question.
Could you read the question back? It's an interesting question. I'm not sure where that comes from. I know that in my experience as a writer, I have always enjoyed writing for female characters, and I've always found it, you know, as a writer, one of the fundamental parts of the job is to have empathy for somebody. Empathy for somebody who's not yourself. You're always writing for another character, you know, and trying to understand somebody else's point of view. And I was always drawn towards writing interesting female characters as a way of putting myself in somebody else's shoes and thinking about it from that point of view. And at the beginning, especially at Star Trek, I was always interested in, like, well, I've never seen a female starship captain. Like, one of the first episodes I wrote or co-wrote in that series was called Yesterday's Enterprise. And I just remember, as I was working on the story of Yesterday's Enterprise, I just sort of thought, well, what if the captain of the Enterprise C was a woman? And that's interesting. We hadn't seen a female captain before. And I was like, oh, so I'll do that. And then I just kept thinking like that. Well, it's interesting. I've never seen a woman character do this. I've never seen a female character do this, or play this role, or be Starbuck, or, you know. So it was always like trying to do something interesting. And the process of then trying to be inside that other character and looking at the world through other eyes, it's just, I don't know, I enjoy it, and I guess I have an affinity for that, for doing it for female characters for whatever reason, and I'm always kind of drawn to write for them. Yeah. And I mean, it's interesting, I'm always touched and surprised when people say that, you know, they like the way I do that, because I'm not a woman, and I can only extend my empathy and my sort of understanding to a certain point, but it does, I don't know, I do enjoy it, and it does seem to work.
Well, you bring your women to a point in themselves, and you don't have to go any further because you bring them to it, and then we can watch them wrestle with it. But part of why I think you do it so successfully is that you write such great men. There's a balance in all of your shows. I mean, you write really manly men, right? Does he not?
I've written some time.
And everybody falls in love. Women fall in love with women, men fall in love with men, women and men fall in love with each other. And the level of love, you know, I can't even begin to talk about Claire and Jamie. Oh my God, right? But I mean, you write these men that give the balance that I think you must carry inside of you. And it's a rare, it's something admirable in you, Ron, that you do have a female-male balance that I think you have naturally. But you never think about that, you just do it.
I mostly just do it. I think the only times that I think about it overtly is when I'm writing a romance story,
Yeah.
or a tale about whether it's an episode or whether it's an arc, and I'm consciously thinking about the moves between, you know, a couple and how they move back and forth. And what the balance is of that. But I, even as I say that, I don't think about it in terms of male and female, in terms of like what the man would do in the situation with the woman. I tend to think about it as the characters. What would Claire do here? You know, how does Claire pull back? You know, when would she pull back? When does Jamie advance? And what's Jamie's insecurity about that? Laura and Adama, you know, who's like
the most unlikely couple.
A very unlikely couple, and yet it's interesting, at the very beginning of the project, I told the writers, it was one of the first things I said in the writer's room was, okay, everyone's gonna wanna write the Laura and Adama love story. We're not doing that story for a long time. So don't be pitching me that story. That has to wait. We might get, I said from the beginning, we might get there. We're probably going to have to get there because these two characters are unique. She's the president, he's the commander of the fleet. They share an experience that is unique. No one else understands their world. Only they understand their responsibilities. Only they understand what it is to be in power at that level. And they have no peers except each other. So this is kind of ready to be a romance one way or another. But I want them to take a long journey before they get there. And so I think without us ever really trying to, we were telling a love story, but it was just like, we're going to put this on a low burn for quite a while.
Well, it was on a really low burn. I was just thinking, I'm so glad I wasn't in the writer's room, and I didn't know this, right? But when you're talking about it, it was in the ether.
Yeah.
And I remember right in the beginning, one of the episodes where we've been having one of those arguments where Adama just wouldn't look at me. You know what I mean? Like, I'd be going on about something, and he would just be looking at the floor. And it was a power struggle, right? And so I remember thinking, ugh, this guy. And then I go, yeah, but I don't know. So it was kind of